Three of my biggest inspirations when creating my media project were my favourite directors, Edgar Wright, Mike Leigh and Paul McEwan. Starting with Mike Leigh, he's known for his work in social realism, something I knew I wanted to use from the word go. Not only did I want to use the concept, but also challenge it by, instead of having a stereotypical downbeat tone to the film, I wanted to create a film that was more of a feel-good film, whilst also keeping the idea of having a young, unknown cast, and a storyline that relates to the audience, as social realistic films usually do. Taking this into account, I followed Signorelli's underrepresentation by underrepresenting the very young and very old by having teenage actors in my short film. Paul McEwan was another of my inspirations, mostly known for the TV show Sherlock. His concept of using text on screen was another idea I wanted to use in my film. In the show, the text is used to show what the characters are thinking or what they are texting or emailing. Instead, I used my on-screen text to act as if the voiceover was writing a letter or email to the audience. Using this idea and recreating it is called intertextuality, a kind of postmodernism, where the filmmaker takes an idea previously used and makes it their own. Postmodernism itself is much harder to explain. My third and final director was Edgar Wright. I really wanted to use some of his ideas in my film, but felt that they wouldn't work. It wasn't until much later, once I'd finished filming my short film, I realised the scene where the mother character is making tea isn't unlike a scene from his film Hot Fuzz, where the character is getting ready to go to the pub. This, again, is intertextuality. As well as postmodernism, social realism, and Signorelli's underrepresentation, another theory I used was John Hartley's invisible fiction of the audience. This was done by creating a questionnaire which I gave out to my target audience before I started filming my film. This gave me an idea of what the audience would want and what they would like from a short film, and also where they felt would be best for it to be advertised and broadcast. I also decided to use a non-linear narrative as opposed to a linear narrative. This is because I felt that a non-linear narrative would be much more interesting to my audience and would keep their concentration for longer. In my film, I decided to have a colour scheme of pink and blue. This is postmodern and breaks the usual conventions of using black or white, coloured, or a sepia effect on certain shots or scenes in the film. I used this colour scheme throughout all of my main products and ancillary texts. So I had colour washes on certain shots in the film, I had pink and blue used in my photographs and on my poster, and the main colour scheme of my review page is pink and blue. I also used the same photographs throughout my products. For example, in the film I have quick shots of the two photographs that are also used in the poster, which are blended into the background. The background of the poster is also an image taken from the film, which I've blurred. I also have the same images of my characters that are used in the film and the poster on my review. I've also used a Twitter tag on both my poster and my review page. This helps meet my target audience of teenagers and also helps me advertise the film more on social media websites. Not only do I have a colour scheme running through the film and ancillary text, I also have a font. This font connotes the idea of a typewriter or a letter, therefore linking to the idea that the voiceover character is addressing an open letter to the audience. My audience has been important from the start. For example, as I said earlier, I used John Hartley's invisible fiction of the audience to get an understanding of what my target audience want. For example, the audience thought a voiceover would be good. There's no definite preference of there being an uplifting or sad ending. They find multi-strand storylines more interesting, and they think social media is the best placement for my film. I took this last piece of advice into account and posted my film on Twitter and Facebook. Here is some of my feedback.
Is there any particular parts you liked?
I liked all of it.
Yeah,
I thought
You
it was
can't say that.
I liked the bit where Lewis fell over, that was good.
So,
Is there any changes you've made? Sometimes your voiceover is a bit quiet.
Okay, so make that louder. And is there any parts now you've got to be
Is there any parts you didn't like? You can be mean, I don't care. I do not like
Be a
it.
douche, come on.
I'm not a douche though. To beat that out. Beat that word out. Okay, and is there any parts that you didn't understand, or do you understand it?
I do.
Do you think the voiceover brings it together?
I liked it. I liked your own voice. It's good.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, good way. Bye bye. Bye people.
Are there any particular parts you like?
I like the voiceovers quite a lot. I think you did a pretty good job with them.
Thank you. Do you think it brings it together?
It does actually, because I must admit I was kind of confused about the plot when I'd seen it before
Yeah,
without the
exactly.
voiceovers. So now it really does help.
Are there any changes you'd make?
Do you want to see what's like?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Changes. Oh god.
Yeah, I know. I'm reading my questions.
God. Oh damn! I can't think of any changes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is there anything you didn't like?
Didn't like.
Me.
There's one thing that's bugging me. It's just very, very, very small. With the whole church we got married thing, I think you should have like the actual wedding tune rather than just church bells or something like that.
Okay then.
Okay, it's just not.
And did you understand it?
I did understand it once the
At
when the
least it's
voice
understandable now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I'll wave to the camera. Bye bye.
My hands are.
I stored all the information I researched about theorists and short films on Prezis and PowerPoints, which were then put on the internet via SlideShare. Most of the information I found out about the theorists were found on the website Media Know All, and I found this by using Google Scholar. Most of the information I found out about short films and the short films I watched were found on YouTube. I preferred using Prezi over SlideShare as I felt that I could find the information that I had researched quicker on Prezi, whereas on SlideShare I would have to flick through all of the PowerPoint pages to find the information I needed. When developing ideas for my film, I used MindMaple to map out any theorists, directors, or any concepts I wanted to use within my film. I found this very helpful as I had all of my ideas on one page, and the software was easy to use. And obviously another huge part of the development of my media product was my blog. Dropbox took a huge part in the construction and editing of my film. I recorded the voiceovers on my iPad and sent them to myself via Dropbox to make them accessible on the Mac. To edit my film, I used Final Cut instead of iMovie, which I used to make my AS film last year. I decided to use Final Cut as I felt that the effects were much easier to use and had a much wider scope compared to iMovie. For example, I created a split screen on my film, and this would have been much harder to create in iMovie than it was in Final Cut. To create my music, I used loops on GarageBand and different instruments. I feel my use of GarageBand has improved a lot compared to last year, where I hadn't really used it before.